Maya's phone slipped from her hand as she tried to balance 3 grocery bags, her coffee, and text her best friend about the disastrous date she just survived. But when she finally grabbed it and hit send, she didn't notice that autocorrect had changed the last digit of Sophie's number. The text read, "I'm convinced dating apps were invented by Satan himself. This guy spent 40 minutes explaining cryptocurrency and didn't ask me a single question. I ordered dessert just to make it less painful. Send help or wine." She made it up to her apartment, dumped the groceries on the counter, and kicked off her heels. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. "Wrong number, but that sounds brutal. For what it's worth, I hope the dessert was good." Maya stared at the screen, her cheeks flushed hot with embarrassment. She just complained about her dating life to a complete stranger. Perfect. Exactly what her day needed. She typed quickly. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. My friend Sophie and I were supposed to grab drinks, but I had this date instead, and I was venting, and I'm mortified right now." The reply came faster than she expected. "Don't be. I've sat through my share of painful conversations. What kind of dessert did you get?" Maya found herself smiling despite the situation. "Chocolate lava cake. The only good decision I made all night. Solid choice. I'm Nathan, by the way. And you're clearly not Sophie." Maya. And no, definitely not Sophie, who is probably wondering why I'm ignoring her. She should have left it there. Should have apologized again, texted the right number, and moved on with her life. But something about the ease of talking to someone who knew nothing about her, who had no expectations or judgments, made her keep typing. "Nathan. So are you the kind of person who would spend 40 minutes talking about cryptocurrency on a first date?" "God, no. I'd spend at least 50 minutes. Really make sure she regrets every life choice that led her there." Maya laughed out loud in her empty apartment. "Honesty. I respect that. I try. Though in reality, I'd probably spend the first date nervously talking about whatever she wanted and hoping I don't spill something on myself." That's actually refreshing. Low bar, but still. They texted back and forth for the next hour. Maya learned that Nathan was 32, lived in the city, and had a dry sense of humor that matched her own. He learned that she was 28, worked as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center, and had a rescued cat named Pepper who was, in her words, "an absolute menace who I would die for." When she finally said goodnight, she was still smiling. She texted Sophie the original message, this time to the correct number, and mentioned the mix-up. Sophie's response was immediate. "Please tell me you're going to keep talking to wrong number guy." Maya fell asleep thinking maybe she would. The next morning, she woke up to a text from Nathan. "Morning. Hope your hangover from all that wine isn't too bad." She grinned at her phone. "Bold of you to assume I'm not the kind of person who day drinks after bad dates. Are you?" "No, but I appreciate that you didn't assume. I actually had a pretty quiet night." "Well, except for the stranger I accidentally texted about my problems." Lucky stranger. Something warm spread through her chest. She got ready for work, and they continued texting throughout the day whenever she had breaks between patients. Nathan was easy to talk to in a way that felt rare. He asked questions, remembered details, and made her laugh with quick, clever responses. Over the next 2 weeks, texting Nathan became part of her routine. Good morning messages, updates throughout the day, longer conversations at night when they both had time to really talk. She learned he was originally from Seattle but had moved to New York for work 8 years ago. He was close with his younger sister, Emma, who lived in Boston. He ran early in the mornings because he was, as he put it, absolutely useless at night. He loved old movies, terrible puns, and Thai food. She told him about her patients, about the elderly woman who'd made huge progress after a stroke and cried happy tears at her last session, about her roommate from college who was getting married in 3 months, about her parents who lived upstate and called every Sunday without fail, about how she'd wanted to be a dancer when she was young but a knee injury at 17 had changed everything, and physical therapy had shown her a different way to help people move. "I think it's incredible," Nathan had texted, "that you took something that must have been devastating and turned it into a career helping others. It wasn't quite that poetic. I cried for like 6 months first. That's allowed. But you still did it." 3 weeks after the initial wrong number text, Sophie brought it up over brunch. "So when are you going to meet this guy?" Maya pushed her eggs Benedict around her plate. "I don't know. What if he's not who he seems? What if he is? What if it's weird in person? We have this thing going and meeting might ruin it." Sophie gave her a look. "Maya, you text this man more than you text me. You smile at your phone like a teenager. Just meet him for coffee. What if he's disappointed when he sees me? Then he's an idiot and you stop texting him. But I don't think that's going to happen." That night, Maya lay in bed with her phone, reading back through weeks of conversations. She and Nathan had talked about everything: movies and music and childhood memories, their fears and hopes and the strange little things that made them who they were. She knew he drank his coffee black, that he was left-handed, that his favorite book was East of Eden, that he'd broken his arm falling out of a tree when he was 9. But she didn't know what he looked like. They hadn't exchanged photos. It had started as an oversight, then became something neither of them brought up, like they were both afraid of breaking whatever spell they were under. She took a breath and typed, "What if we met?" The 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, appeared again. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I was hoping you'd ask." When they agreed on Saturday afternoon at a coffee shop in Greenwich Village, neutral territory for both of them. Maya changed her outfit 4 times that morning before Sophie, who'd come over for moral support, physically stopped her. "You look beautiful. The blue dress is perfect. Now breathe." "I'm breathing." "You're hyperventilating." Maya sat on her bed. "What if this is a mistake? We have something good. What if meeting ruins it?" Sophie sat beside her. "Or what if it makes it better?" "Maya, you haven't been this excited about someone in years. Maybe ever. Don't let fear kill it before it even starts." The coffee shop was small and busy, filled with mismatched furniture and the rich smell of espresso. Maya arrived 10 minutes early, ordered a latte she was too nervous to drink, and sat at a table by the window. She'd texted Nathan that she'd be wearing a blue dress and would have her hair down. He'd said he'd be in a gray shirt and jeans. She watched every person who walked through the door. A man with headphones, a couple holding hands, a woman with a baby stroller. Her phone buzzed. "I'm here." By the counter. Maya turned and her breath caught. Nathan was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair and broad shoulders. He had a strong jaw and warm brown eyes that were currently scanning the room. When they landed on her, his whole face changed. A slow smile spread across his features as he walked toward her table. "Maya," she stood, suddenly very aware of her shaking hands. "Nathan, hi." "Hi." He looked at her like she was something precious. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined." Her cheeks went hot. "You imagined?" "Constantly." He gestured to the chair. "Can I sit, please?" They sat across from each other, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then they both started talking at once, stopped, laughed. The tension broke. "You first," Nathan said. "I was just going to say this is surreal, good surreal, but surreal." "I know what you mean. I feel like I know you, but also like I'm meeting you for the first time." "Exactly." And then they were talking like they did over text, except better because she could see the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Hear the warmth in his laugh, Watch the way he leaned forward when she spoke like he didn't want to miss a word. The coffee shop noise faded into background static. An hour passed like minutes, then another. They ordered more coffee, then sandwiches when they realized they'd talked through lunch. The afternoon light shifted, golden and soft through the windows. "I have to admit something," Nathan said, pushing his empty plate aside. "I've been nervous about this for days. I kept thinking about what I'd say, how I'd act, but this is easy. You're easy to be with. I was terrified you'd take one look at me and leave." His expression grew serious. "Maya, I'm going to be very clear about something. The moment I saw you, my first thought was that I'm in so much trouble. Because you're gorgeous and smart and funny, and I already knew I liked you before we met. Now, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to make sure this isn't the last time I see you." Her heart felt like it might burst through her chest. "I'd like to see you again. Tomorrow," she laughed. Eager, completely. They left the coffee shop as the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Nathan walked her to the subway station and they stood on the sidewalk, neither wanting to leave. "Thank you for taking a chance on a wrong number," Nathan said softly. "Thank you for responding." He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The simple touch sent electricity through her skin. "Tomorrow, dinner." "Yes." She floated home on the subway, texted Sophie a dozen heart emojis, and fell asleep smiling. Nathan picked her up at 7 the next evening. He'd made reservations at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village, the kind of place with dim lighting and candles on every table. He held doors for her, pulled out her chair, and looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Over pasta and wine, they fell deeper into each other. Maya told him about her last relationship, which had ended a year ago when she'd realized they wanted different things. He'd wanted to stay comfortable and safe. She'd wanted growth and adventure, even if it scared her. "I spent 6 years with someone who never really saw me," she said, surprising herself with the honesty. "He loved the idea of me, but not the reality. It took me too long to leave." Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. "His loss, my gain. What about you? Last relationship?" His jaw tightened slightly. "Ended about 2 years ago. She was in finance. We were both working insane hours, barely saw each other. When we finally spent real time together, we realized we'd built a relationship on text messages and exhaustion. There was nothing actually there." "That sounds lonely." It was. "I told myself I was too busy for anything real, used work as an excuse to avoid trying." He squeezed her hand. Then a wrong number text came through and I responded without thinking. Best impulse decision I've ever made. They skipped dessert at the restaurant and walked to a nearby gelato place instead, wandering the streets with their cones, shoulders bumping. Nathan told her about his sister Emma's upcoming wedding, about how she'd called him crying last week because the venue had double booked and they'd had to scramble for a new location. "You're close with her," Maya observed. "She's my best friend. When our parents divorced, we only had each other for a while. That doesn't go away. I always wanted a sibling. I love my parents, but being an only child gets lonely. You can borrow Emma. She's a lot. I'd like to meet her sometime." Nathan stopped walking and turned to face her. "You would?" "If that's okay, I just meant you talk about her so much. She's clearly important to you." His expression went soft. "You're important to me." Her breath caught. They'd known each other for a month, had met in person twice, but standing there on a random street corner with the city moving around them, Maya felt like something fundamental had shifted. Like her life had been in black and white and was suddenly in vivid color. "You're important to me too," she whispered. Nathan cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and perfect, and Maya felt it all the way to her toes. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. "I really like you, Maya. I really like you too." They spent every free moment together over the next 3 weeks. Nathan took her to a photography exhibit at MoMA. She brought him to her favorite bookstore in Brooklyn. They cooked dinner at his apartment, where she learned he was surprisingly good at chopping vegetables and terrible at timing anything to be done simultaneously. They watched old movies on her couch with Pepper sprawled across both their laps. They talked until 3 in the morning and never ran out of things to say. Maya's friends loved him. Sophie pulled her aside at a group dinner and said, "If you don't keep this one, I'm staging an intervention." Nathan's friends were equally enthusiastic. His best friend Marcus shook her hand and said, "I've known this guy for 8 years and I've never seen him like this. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." But there was something Nathan wasn't telling her. Maya felt it in the way he'd sometimes deflect questions about work, keeping things vague. He'd mentioned he worked in real estate development, but never went into detail. She'd never been to his office. When she'd asked about meeting for lunch near his work one day, he'd suggested they meet at a restaurant instead, halfway between both their jobs. She told herself she was overthinking it. That not everyone liked talking about work. But a small seed of doubt planted itself in her mind. Then one Saturday morning, she was grabbing coffee before meeting Nathan when she saw him on the cover of a business magazine at the newsstand. She stopped so abruptly the person behind her ran into her bag. The headline read, "Nathan Cross, the millionaire developer reshaping New York's skyline." Maya's hands shook as she picked up the magazine and flipped to the article. There were photos of Nathan in expensive suits at construction sites, at charity galas, standing in front of buildings she recognized. The article talked about his company, Cross Development, which he'd built from the ground up. About the luxury condos and commercial spaces that bore his vision. About his net worth, which made her stomach drop. She bought the magazine and sat on a nearby bench, reading every word. Nathan Cross. Not just Nathan, the guy who texted her about his day and watched rom-coms without complaining and made her laugh until she cried. Nathan Cross, Millionaire CEO. Her phone buzzed. "Morning, beautiful, still good for brunch in an hour." Maya stared at the message, then at the magazine, then back at the message. Why hadn't he told her? What else hadn't he told her? She felt stupid and naive and angry. She showed up at the restaurant they'd planned to meet at, the magazine in her bag. Nathan was already there, standing outside waiting for her, and his face lit up when he saw her. She tried to match his smile, but something must have shown in her expression because his dimmed. "What's wrong?" "Can we talk? Maybe somewhere more private?" His jaw tightened. "My apartment is close." They walked in silence. Nathan lived in a building she'd been to several times, a nice place in Chelsea, but she'd never thought much about it. Now she wondered what else she hadn't noticed. His apartment was on the top floor, spacious and modern with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She'd always loved it here, the clean lines and comfortable furniture, the lived-in feeling despite the obvious quality of everything. Now it felt different, expensive, out of her league. "Maya, please tell me what's going on," Nathan said as soon as the door closed. She pulled the magazine from her bag and held it up. "When were you going to tell me?" His face went pale. He ran a hand through his hair, looking everywhere but at her. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. How about the first time we met? Or any of the dozens of times we've been together since? How about when we talked about our jobs and you conveniently kept yours vague?" Her voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't care? I didn't tell you because every time I tell someone what I do, who I am, everything changes. They either want something from me or they see dollar signs instead of a person." He stepped toward her, his eyes intense. With you, I was just Nathan, just a guy who liked you. I didn't want to lose that, so you lied. I never lied. I just didn't volunteer information that I knew would change how you saw me. That's the same thing, Nathan. She tossed the magazine on his couch. I've spent weeks falling for you, thinking we were equals, thinking we understood each other, and the whole time you've been keeping this massive secret. It's not who I am, it's what I do. It's a huge part of who you are, it's your entire life, and you kept me out of it. She felt tears burning behind her eyes. I told you everything, about my injury, my failed relationship, my fears, and you couldn't tell me this. Nathan's composure cracked. I was terrified, okay? Every relationship I've had has been poisoned by money. Women who dated me for what I could give them, who wanted the lifestyle more than they wanted me. I met you because of a wrong number, completely by accident, and you liked me before you knew anything about this. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? So you decided to just never tell me. When would it have come up, Nathan? When we got serious? When you proposed, our wedding? She laughed bitterly. Oh wait, you'd probably have to explain the massive wedding you could afford. Don't do that. Don't make this about money. It is about money. Or it's about honesty. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. I trusted you with everything else, with parts of me I've never shown anyone. His voice broke. I was going to tell you I've been trying to figure out how for weeks. Maya wiped her eyes. I need time to think. I need to process this. Maya, please. I'm not saying we're over. I'm saying I need space to figure out how I feel about being lied to by someone I was falling in love with. The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time either of them had said love out loud. I'll call you. She left before he could respond, before she could see the look on his face, before she could change her mind. The next few days were miserable. Maya threw herself into work, staying late with patients, avoiding her phone. Sophie came over with wine and ice cream and let her vent for hours. I just feel so stupid, Maya said, curled up on her couch with Pepper. How did I not know? How did I not see it? Because you trusted him. That's not stupid, that's human. He made me feel special, like I was different from everyone else in his life. But he was keeping this huge secret the entire time. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? If he'd told you on the first date that he was a millionaire developer, would you have gone on a second date? Maya opened her mouth to say yes, then stopped. Would she have? Or would she have assumed he was out of her league, that they had nothing in common, that he'd eventually leave her for someone who fit better into his world? I don't know, she admitted quietly. I'm not saying what he did was right, but maybe I understand why he did it. And the question is whether this is something you can forgive. What if there are other secrets? What if I can't trust him? Then you walk away. But Maya, I've seen you together. That man looks at you like you hung the moon, and you're happier with him than I've seen you in years. Maybe this is worth fighting for. Nathan texted her every day, simple messages. I miss you. Please talk to me. I'm sorry. She didn't respond, but she didn't block him either. She read each message multiple times, her thumb hovering over the keyboard, never quite knowing what to say. A week after their fight, a package arrived at her apartment. Inside was a framed photograph. It took her a moment to recognize it, then her breath caught. It was from the photography exhibit they'd gone to, one of the pieces she'd stood in front of for 10 minutes, completely captivated. The photo was of an old couple holding hands on a park bench, their faces weathered and beautiful, and Maya had said it was the most romantic thing she'd ever seen. Nathan had bought it for her, had remembered and bought it for her. There was a note in the box, handwritten. You said this photograph reminded you that love is a choice people make every day in small moments and big ones. I choose you, Maya. Every day in every way. I'm sorry I didn't trust you with all of me. If you give me another chance, I promise there will be no more secrets. Just us, honest and real and messy. I love you, Nathan. Maya sat on her floor and cried. Then she picked up her phone. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the coffee shop where we first met? His response was immediate. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She beat him there, ordered them both coffee, and sat at the same table by the window. When Nathan walked in, he looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hair was messier than she'd ever seen it. But when he saw her, hope flickered across his face. He sat down across from her, and they looked at each other for a long moment. "Thank you for the photograph," Maya said finally. "It's beautiful. I bought it the day we went to the exhibit. I wanted to surprise you." "Nathan, I need you to understand why I was so hurt. It wasn't about the money, it was about trust. I shared everything with you and you held back something fundamental. I know, and I'm sorry, I was a coward." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "But Maya, I've never felt like this about anyone. From that first text, you were different. You were real and funny and kind, and when we met, you were even more incredible than I'd imagined. I kept waiting for the right moment to tell you, but every day that passed made it harder because I knew you'd react exactly like you did. I knew I'd lose you. You almost did. I know, and I would have deserved it." He reached across the table, palm up, an invitation. "I'm asking for another chance. No more secrets. You can ask me anything and I'll tell you the truth. About my work, my life, all of it. I want you in every part of my world, Maya. I should have wanted that from the beginning." She looked at his hand, at his face, at the vulnerability written in every line of his expression. She thought about Sophie's question. She thought about how she felt when she was with him, how right it felt despite everything. She thought about the photograph, about him remembering that moment and wanting to give her something that mattered. She took his hand. "Okay, but I need total honesty from now on, about everything." Relief washed over his face. "Anything. Ask me anything. Tell me about your company. What you actually do." And he did. He told her about starting Cross Development 9 years ago with a loan and a dream, about the first project that almost bankrupted him, about the buildings he'd designed and built across the city. He told her about the pressure and the long hours and the constant scrutiny that came with success. He told her about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted things from him. "I know it sounds ridiculous to complain about," he said. "I'm incredibly fortunate, but it's isolating. You never know who's genuine and who's performing. Until you didn't know anything about my money or my company, and you liked me anyway. That was everything." "I still like you," Maya said softly, "even now that I know you're some fancy millionaire developer." He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him in over a week. "Just to be clear, the fancy millionaire developer is crazy about the physical therapist who saves her dessert texts for wrong numbers. That was one time. Best mistake you ever made. Jury's still out." He squeezed her hand. "What can I do to win your trust back? Just be honest. That's all I need. I don't care about the money, Nathan. I care about you, but I need to know all of you, not just the parts you think I'll accept. You have me, all of me, I promise." They left the coffee shop holding hands, and it felt like starting over except better, because now there was nothing between them. Nathan told her about a new project his company was working on. A mixed-use building in Brooklyn with affordable housing units, something he was passionate about. Maya told him about a new patient, a teenager recovering from a car accident, who reminded her of herself at that age. They went back to Nathan's apartment and ordered takeout and talked for hours, filling in all the gaps they'd left before. Maya asked about the pressure of running a company, and Nathan was honest about the stress and responsibility. He asked if his money bothered her, and she was honest that it was intimidating but not a deal breaker. "I just don't want you to think I expect anything," she said. I'm with you because of who you are, not what you have. I know that now. I think I always knew it, but I was too scared to trust it. As the night stretched on, they found their way back to each other. Nathan pulled her close on the couch, and Maya rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Pepper had somehow gotten in when they arrived and was curled up on the other end of the couch, purring contentedly. I love you, Nathan said into her hair. I know I said it in the note, but I want to say it to you directly. I love you, Maya. She tilted her head up to look at him. I love you too, even though you drive me crazy sometimes. Especially because I drive you crazy. That too. He kissed her, soft and slow, and everything else fell away. When they finally pulled apart, Maya felt the last of her anger dissolve. They would be okay. They would figure this out together. Over the next few months, they built something real. Nathan introduced her to his world, not as a kept woman or arm candy, but as his equal and partner. She met his business associates at a charity gala, wearing a dress she'd bought herself despite Nathan's offers to take her shopping. She held her own in conversations about architecture and development, surprising herself with how much she enjoyed learning about his passion. He came to her work and met her patients, charming the elderly veterans she worked with and making the kids laugh. He asked intelligent questions about physical therapy and recovery, genuinely interested in her expertise. He understood when she had to work late or needed to decompress after a hard day. Emma came to visit and loved Meyer immediately. I've never seen my brother like this, she said over brunch while Nathan was in the bathroom. He's usually so serious and guarded. With you, he's just happy. He makes me happy too. Good. Because if you break his heart, I'll have to do something drastic like tell you embarrassing childhood stories. I'd like to hear those anyway. Nathan's friends became her friends. Her friends became his friends. Their lives wove together naturally, two separate paths becoming one. They fought sometimes, usually about stupid things like Nathan's tendency to work too much or Maya's habit of saying she was fine when she wasn't. But they always talked it through, always came back to each other. 6 months after they'd reconciled, Nathan took her to the construction site of his Brooklyn project. They walked through the skeleton of what would become hundreds of homes, and he talked about his vision with such passion that Maya fell in love with him all over again. This is what matters to me, he said, gesturing at the building rising around them. Not the luxury condos or the commercial spaces. This, creating homes people can actually afford, building communities that work for everyone. This is why I do what I do. You're amazing, Maya said. You know that, right? He turned to her, hard hat slightly askew, concrete dust on his jacket. I'm just trying to make a difference. You are. You do. That night, he took her to the top of one of his completed buildings, a high-rise in Midtown with a private rooftop terrace. The city sprawled out beneath them, a million lights in the darkness. I have something to ask you, Nathan said, taking both her hands. And I'm nervous, which is ridiculous because I'm pretty sure I know your answer, but there's still a chance you'll say no, and that terrifies me. Maya's heart started racing. Nathan, he dropped to one knee, and suddenly Maya couldn't breathe. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a stunning ring, simple and elegant with a single diamond that caught the light. Maya, you came into my life by accident and changed everything. You see me for who I really am, not what I have or what I can give you. You challenge me and inspire me and make me laugh even when I'm stressed out of my mind. You're my best friend and the love of my life. I can't imagine my future without you in it. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Maya's face. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. Nathan stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her as the city sparkled around them. Maya felt like she was flying, like nothing could ever bring her down from this moment. "I love you so much," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too. Thank you for answering that wrong number text. Thank you for responding." They stood on that rooftop for hours, making plans and dreaming about their future. Nathan wanted a small wedding, just close friends and family. Maya wanted to get married in the fall, her favorite season. They talked about where they'd live, whether his place or hers or somewhere new entirely. They talked about kids someday, though not right away. They talked about traveling together, about all the places they wanted to see. The wedding planning was surprisingly smooth. Nathan's resources meant they could have whatever they wanted, but Maya was adamant about keeping things simple and personal. They chose a small venue upstate near where Maya's parents lived, a historic inn with beautiful gardens. Emma was Maya's maid of honor, and Marcus was Nathan's best man. The guest list stayed under 100 people. Nathan tried repeatedly to pay for everything, but Maya insisted on contributing. They compromised, splitting costs where it made sense, and letting Nathan cover the bigger items. It wasn't about the money for her. It was about feeling like an equal partner in their life together. "You're stubborn," Nathan said after she'd insisted on paying for her own wedding dress. "You're just figuring that out now. I've known it since our first text conversation. It's one of my favorite things about you." The wedding was perfect. Maya walked down the aisle toward Nathan, who looked at her like she was the only person in the world. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising honesty and patience and love through whatever came. When the officiant pronounced them married, Nathan kissed her so deeply that their guests cheered. At the reception, they danced under string lights as the sun set. Nathan held her close, swaying to music that seemed to play just for them. "Hello, Mrs. Cross," he murmured into her ear. "I'm keeping my name professionally, remember? Hello, Mrs. Cross at home and Meyer at work," she laughed. "That's quite a mouthful. I'll just call you my wife then. I like the sound of that." Emma gave a toast that made everyone cry with stories about Nathan as a kid, about how he'd always been protective and kind, and too serious for his own good. "Maya brought light into his life," she said, raising her glass. "And I've never been more grateful for a wrong number in my life." Sophie's toast was equally touching. "I've watched Maya go through heartbreak and disappointment, waiting for someone who would see her and love her for exactly who she is. Nathan, you're that person. Take care of my best friend." "Always," Nathan promised, looking at Maya with such love that her chest ached with happiness. They honeymooned in Italy, spending 2 weeks eating incredible food, exploring ancient cities, and lounging on beaches. Nathan left his phone off most of the time, trusting his team to handle things without him. Maya felt herself relax in a way she hadn't in months, the stress of wedding planning finally lifting. One evening in Rome, they sat at a small restaurant eating pasta and watching people walk by. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. "This is all I ever want," he said. "You and me and moments like this. We'll have plenty of them. I know, but I don't want to take them for granted. I don't want to get so caught up in work that I forget what matters." "Then don't. And if you do, I'll remind you," he smiled. "I'm counting on it." When they returned to New York, real life settled in, but it was better than before. They decided to move into a new apartment together, something that felt like theirs instead of his or hers. They found a place in Brooklyn, spacious enough for both of them plus Pepper, with big windows and a small balcony. Maya continued working at the rehabilitation center, though Nathan offered multiple times to support her if she wanted to work less or pursue other interests. She always declined. She loved her job, loved helping people recover and rebuild their lives. Nathan eventually stopped asking and just supported her however she needed. Nathan threw himself into his work but with better boundaries. He came home for dinner most nights. He took weekends off when he could. He talked to Maya about his projects, asking for her input, valuing her perspective even though she wasn't in his industry. A year into their marriage, over breakfast on a lazy Sunday morning, Maya brought up something they'd been dancing around for months. "What do you think about kids?" she asked, watching Nathan's face carefully. He looked up from his coffee, eyes brightening. "I think about them a lot, actually. Do you want kids?" "I do. Not right away, but soon. I want to build a family with you." Nathan came around the table and pulled her into his arms. "I want that too. I want everything with you." They started trying a few months later, and 6 months after that, Maya took a pregnancy test that came back positive. She told Nathan by leaving the test on the bathroom counter where he'd find it, then watching from the bedroom as he walked in, saw it and processed what it meant. "Maya," his voice cracked. "Is this real?" She appeared in the doorway, smiling through happy tears. "It's real. We're having a baby." He crossed the space between them in 2 strides and lifted her off the ground, spinning her around. "We're having a baby. Oh my God, we're having a baby." The pregnancy was smooth. Nathan was attentive to the point of being overbearing, constantly asking if Maya needed anything, if she felt okay, if the baby was moving enough. She found it endearing even when it drove her crazy. He went to every doctor's appointment, holding her hand during ultrasounds and asking the doctor a million questions. When they found out they were having a daughter, Nathan cried, "A little girl. We're having a little girl." They painted the nursery together, a soft yellow with white trim. Nathan insisted on assembling all the furniture himself, spending hours with instruction manuals spread across the floor. Emma came to visit and helped Maya organize tiny clothes and blankets, both of them tearing up at the sight of newborn onesies. "You're going to be such a good mom," Emma said. "I hope so. I'm terrified." "That's how you know you'll be great. Only the bad parents aren't scared." Maya's water broke 3 weeks before her due date, and Nathan went into what she called organized panic mode. He grabbed the hospital bag they'd packed, called the doctor, and got them to the hospital while simultaneously calling both sets of parents to let them know it was happening. Labor was long and hard, but Nathan never left her side. He held her hand through contractions, whispered encouragement, and looked at her like she was a superhero. When their daughter finally arrived, screaming and perfect, Maya watched Nathan hold her for the first time and fell in love with him all over again. "She's perfect," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "She's absolutely perfect." They named her Caroline after Nathan's grandmother, Caroline Nathan Cross, though Maya joked they'd have to explain the 2 first-name situation when she was older. Bringing Caroline home was overwhelming and wonderful and exhausting. Nathan took paternity leave, something he'd never done before in his life, and threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He changed diapers and did midnight feedings and walked the apartment bouncing Caroline when she couldn't sleep. Maya watched him with their daughter and felt so much love she thought she might burst. This life they'd built, this family they'd created, it all started with a wrong number text that could have easily been ignored or dismissed. Caroline was 6 months old when they celebrated their 2nd wedding anniversary. Nathan's parents came to babysit, and he took Maya to the same Italian restaurant where they'd had their first date. 2 years, Maya said, raising her wine glass. "Feels like longer, in the best way." "In the best way," she agreed. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand, the same way he had a dozen times before. "I need to tell you something." Maya's stomach dropped for just a second before she saw his smile. "What?" I'm stepping back from the company. Not completely, but I'm hiring a CEO to handle day-to-day operations. I want to focus on design and the projects I'm passionate about, but I want more time for you and Caroline, for our life. Nathan, that's huge. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Well, except for marrying you and having Caroline, but other than those two things. He squeezed her hand. I spent so many years building a company and making money and thinking that was success. But this, what we have, that's real success. That's what I want to prioritize. I love you, Maya said softly. So much. I love you too. They went home that night to relieve his parents and stood together in Caroline's nursery, watching their daughter sleep. Nathan wrapped his arms around Maya from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For texting the wrong number, for giving me a chance, for building this life with me. Maya turned in his arms to face him. Thank you for responding, for taking a risk on a stranger complaining about a bad date. Best wrong number text in history, definitely the best. Caroline stirred in her crib, making soft baby noises, and they both held their breath waiting to see if she'd wake up. When she settled back into sleep, Meyer and Nathan tiptoed out of the room, hands linked, smiling at the life they'd accidentally found and deliberately built together. Years later, when Caroline was old enough to understand, they told her the story of how they met. How sometimes the best things in life come from mistakes. How a text meant for someone else had led to a love neither of them had expected but both of them had chosen, every single day since. And every year on the anniversary of that first wrong number text, Nathan sent Meyer a message. Wrong number. Right person. Always. And Maya always responded the same way. Best mistake I ever made. Because sometimes the wrong number is exactly right. Sometimes a stranger becomes your everything. Sometimes a simple text message changes your whole life. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that stranger is a millionaire who falls hard but loves you for all the reasons that have nothing to do with money and everything to do with who you are when no one is watching, when there's nothing to gain but each other. That was their story. A wrong number, a leap of faith, and a love that proved the best things in life are the ones you never see coming.